Welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show, and it is a happy joy kind of Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. Let's give it up for ourselves. We've made it through another week. We've made it through another week of work. We've made it through another week of chaos. We've made it through another week of what I would consider suboptimal Phillies baseball. Even though some of the results have been there, I would still call it rather suboptimal baseball, and yet here we are. My computer's in the midst of a meltdown. It looks like I'm about to lose the camera. I might have already lost the camera. This is not a great place to be. This is not where I wanted to be on a Friday. And now we go to the ever-loving pivot here on the show. Oh, geez. Oh, boy. Hello. This is not what I enjoy on a Friday. We got to go to this camera now? I don't like this camera. I don't want to be on this camera. This camera upsets me. Makes me feel weird. Makes me feel kind of nauseous. I don't like it at all. And in fact, if it's this bad, I got a weird notification on the computer about using it. I don't know. This is not great. Well, anyway, welcome into the show. A little bit of chaos here. Now, as I was saying, there's a small part of me that doesn't love the Phillies baseball that I've been treated to of late and that you've all been treated to as well. And it's a bunch of Phillies baseball that I think has largely been underwhelming. And there is a big concern that I have. And his name is Bryce Harper. And I know that might come off as kind of crazy to some people, but I'm not loving what the Phillies are getting out of Bryce Harper this week. But that's not what the point is. That's not what we're here for. We're not here to just complain about Bryce Harper. I would love to know why. I've officially lost my camera. Camera is officially gone. I have no idea why. This is not good. I can't do a whole show here. Oh, God help us if we have to be up here, friends. This is not what it's all about. This is not the hokey pokey. That's what it's all about. Oh, if we're here, hold on. We're gonna do the very unprecedented thing here. We're gonna call a temporary pause because I have to get into Flyer stuff. I got to figure out why this camera stopped working. Give me 5 seconds here. I've been put on like some really great elevator music. We like elevator music. I think we like it. This one's called Feeding the Ducks. What's this one? That doesn't really sound. Not getting. Hold on. We gotta find one that sounds. This one. This'll. Everybody just kind of take a moment to take a deep breath as a collective. Oh, that's why. Stop cam. Welcome to the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. Figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. Now I figured it out. I got it. We're good. We are 7.5 minutes into a stream. And I'm going to have to go back, I guess, and edit out 7.5 minutes worth of nonsense. But welcome into the show. I just want, at this point, to just log off, go crawl in a hole. Right? Maybe that's where I have to be. Maybe I just need to go crawl in a hole right now. And we'll just come back on Monday. Because by Monday, maybe things will be better. Or maybe they won't be. I don't know. It's been a freaky Friday here on the Russ Joy Show. Why? Because the computer booted the main camera. We went temporarily to the small camera. There was no audio. Then there was audio. Then there was no audio again. But we're here. Okay. So where was I? I was stating that I'm a little bit concerned about the Phillies. I stated the fact that I have a legitimate concern about one of the Phillies' biggest stars, but I'm not spending the whole show talking about it. And in fairness, I need people to just kind of meet me somewhere in the middle. I can't go out of my way to get super jazzed up about the Phillies here at the start of May because this team is 3 games over 500. And to me, yes, you can point back and say, hey, they won the series against the Nationals. We should feel good about it. Yes, they won the series about the Cubs against the Cubs in Chicago. We should feel good about it. But I don't. And a big part of why is because I just feel like this team is going through the motions. But I can't get myself too emotionally invested in it. I can't get too high and too low on May 2nd. But I have concerns. And I was listening to my dear friends over on Fightin' Words, which you can find on the Joy Media Network. You can find that on the Joy Media YouTube feed. They have their own YouTube channel. You can find it wherever you get your podcasts. I'm listening to these guys, and they're expressing concerns about Bryce Harper. And I checked out something that friend of the show, Broads, put out that he went on the radio on WIP with yesterday, or maybe it was the wee hours of this morning. Concerns about Bryce Harper and about Bryce Harper not looking like himself and Bryce Harper hitting .235. And I think if I remember correctly, the number that Broads threw out there was 3 of his home runs came in a 4-game stretch in April, and the other 2 have happened in the games since. And so it hasn't exactly been Bryce Harper lighting the world on fire. And I'd love to go back to this really quickly. And then I want to get to the main point of today's show, which has nothing to do with the Phillies at all. Bryce Harper wanted a contract extension from this team. If you remember, last year, it was last year, is when the show started. There were these murmurs of Bryce Harper wants a contract extension. I said, well, that's really stupid. Why should Bryce Harper get a contract extension? He's already under contract for a ton of years. And by the end of the current contract, he's going to be a mostly useless player. No offense to Bryce Harper. Lovely guy, I'm sure. But it's not going to be productive years of Bryce Harper at that point. And so I'm confident enough to sit back and say, I don't want to see the Phillies sign him to an extension because there's no point. Unless it's to be what's essentially a brand ambassador years from now. But in fairness, for the kind of money that Bryce Harper is going to command, you don't want him to simply be a brand ambassador. So I was like, all right, are we ever going to get to a point where he's kind of huffy because he didn't get that extension? I don't think that's what this is right now. But I think that what Bryce Harper might be in the midst of is either he's hurt, which is possible, but that would be concerning because that would be multiple years in a row with an injury, and or he might be feeling the pressure and the malaise. Bryce Harper's not a stupid guy. Bryce Harper can probably take a look at the number of games that this bullpen has blown this year. Bryce Harper can also probably very fundamentally understand that this outfield situation is garbaggio, and that if you're going to be a legitimate World Series contending team, you simply cannot have an outfield that is comprised of what they have right now. And Bryce Harper's smart enough to know that Max Kepler wasn't a huge signing, wasn't a great signing, wasn't going to change the fortunes of the team kind of signing, that Marsh and Rojas are debatably platoon players in Major League Baseball. And then Nick Castellanos is a fine outfielder, but he's a streaky hitter, and it is what it is. Have we just hit the point now where Bryce Harper is apathetic? And maybe that's a conversation to have. And maybe next week we'll get there. Maybe next week we'll dive a little bit more into it, because I don't want to be totally unfair here. And I know that a lot of people that tune into the show come here for reaction to Phillies, but like, I have to be honest with you. Bryce Harper to me just doesn't look like he's mentally locked in. And physically, he doesn't look locked in. And I could point to a misplayed ball that he should have made a play on and ends up leading to runs for the Nats as maybe he's not mentally locked in. The lack of productivity at the plate could maybe him being physically out of it. But there is part of me that just wonders, like, does he kind of see the writing on the wall that this team is going to be an around 500 team? They're going to go through a few hot streaks that's going to keep them in the wild card conversation. Maybe it'll have them remotely like quasi-competitive in the NL East. They're 3.5 games out right now, but pretty important to point out the fact that the Braves are 7-3 in their last 10 games, and the Braves are only 2.5 games back of the Phillies right now. Like, is that what we're looking at? And then there's part of me that goes, is this, like, I hope this isn't the case, right? But is this team just totally, like, fucked in the head because the vibes aren't immaculate? Is this just a thing where, like, they've essentially run back this roster multiple years in a row, and they're getting similar results, but they're not having fun doing it, and now all of a sudden the vibes aren't right, and so now we're pouting? Like, I started to put some thought into this, and I'm not ready to, like, make it a definitive stance of mine. Because, as you know, I don't like to peddle in hot takes. Now, there are people on Twitter, and I've called these people out before, that think that, like, I just say shit for clicks and views and things. And that's not true. If I present you an idea on this show, it's because I truly do believe it. There's part of me that goes, has Bryce Harper's apathy resulted in part because the guys that he recruited to this team and the guys that he kind of went to bat for largely haven't worked out, and that may be the reason Dave Dombrowski didn't go out in the offseason and make a significant signing, is because he said, yo, enough. Like, did Dave Dombrowski say enough, and was it his choice? Was it John Middleton's choice? Whose choice was it to not make a signing in the offseason? Like, if I were John Middleton, and I have to have this conversation that Bryce Harper wanted an extension after he wanted Kyle Schwarber, and he wanted Trey Turner, and he wanted Nick Castellanos, and you haven't gotten back to a World Series, and year over year the results are getting worse, and then you got curb stomped by the division rival Mets in the wild card round. If I'm John Middleton, do I want to go out and make another $350 million investment or $500 million investment to get a guy like Juan Soto or someone else? The answer is probably no, unless you can guarantee me that we're going to go back to a World Series. So did we like hit a point now where Harper is like a little bit disaffected by the decision of ownership not to invest more money? Does he feel disaffected because he's not thrilled with the idea that Dave Dombrowski thought this team was good enough? Like, I don't know. But what I can tell you is just based off of the body language and based off of the results, something just seems off. Now, I would encourage you to go listen to Fightin' Words, again, on the Joy Media YouTube channel or on their YouTube channel or wherever you get your podcasts, and listen to Bob and Ant and let them kind of be the ones who are going to break this stuff down in more depth, in more granular detail. While I would enjoy doing that, they dropped an episode today. And they're also more plugged in on the team right now than I am. So I defer to them on the Phillies point. But I just wanted to put that out there. And there is a thought that I do have about what happens when you try to build a team based on vibes and based on the friends of a player, a star player, or one of your better players, or one of your more highly paid players. And there was a recent example of that in Philadelphia with another team. But again, I don't want to totally throw that idea out there yet because I'm not 100% convinced it's the same thing. But I'm a little bit iffy. And I'm certainly concerned with the fact that the Phillies, despite the fact that they've now won 2 series in a row, they just don't inspire a lot of confidence. And they don't inspire me to think, oh yeah, I need to get to Phillies games. I need to dish out the dough to take the family to go down and watch winning baseball. And again, I think it's a good team, but a World Series contending team right now is currently constructed? No, it's not. Bullpen has too many issues. The outfield is down at least one major league caliber player. I could make the argument that if you're going to be a legit World Series contender, you need 2 more outfielders and like actual impact guys, like at least one that's an impact bat. And please, for God's sakes, do not bring up Mike Trout to me. Don't you dare. Okay, so let me go out to the comments really quick. I'm going to pull some of the early ones before all the tech issues. We'll find a little bit of Philly stuff. And then I do want to get to the point of today's show, which is the coaching carousel, because the NHL, despite the fact that we are in the midst of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they have been very good playoffs, some names have come off the board. And then there may be some new names that are coming here as well that are perhaps being discussed. Ford is here, says you're welcome. Kenny Jones over on X says happy Gonzo Friday, Russ. Phila Thrilla 16 says happy Friday, Russ. Andrew Fawcett is here. Brian Knowlton says, Russ, you got your wish. Happy Friday. I don't know. What was the wish that I had for Friday? What wish did I have? I don't even remember. Did I make a wish on Wednesday? I don't even remember. I legitimately don't remember at all. What was my wish? What was the wish I was hoping for? This is bad. Andrew Fawcett says, okay, hear me out on this. Phillies signed Harper, and they've been good for the most part. Danny B says he wants the best player. So is McDavid the Flyers' Harper? They're not getting McDavid. I would not be surprised if Connor McDavid eventually leaves Edmonton. I don't think it's going to be to come here. Boy, would that be fun. Can you imagine if you went out, like if Philly did the thing that Philly once did before or has in the past been able to do in some other sports and like goes out and gets the top free agent? Well, that's one thing. You get the best player in the entire sport. We'd be back, friends. We would 100% be back. Okay. Let's see. This is actually kind of funny. So when the audio was out on the stream, Ford says, this is still better than 94.1 and 97.5. I didn't do like a Radio Wars thing about Tyrone Johnson being let go from the Fanatic because I never wanted to get misconstrued. I don't like people losing their jobs. I do not enjoy that. I don't take any pleasure in anyone losing their job. I can tell you that the 97.5 afternoon show isn't anything that really excites me. I will tell you this. That station's a mess. That's the short of it. And I've now done episodes and segments on 97.5. It is a mess of a place. There was earlier this year, earlier in the hockey season, I talked to a couple of people who have a decent enough understanding of the thought process of some of the talent over there. There's one host that no one wants to work with, and it's not Mike Missinelli. There's another one. And that person didn't exactly have a great ratings book, so now I'm wondering, like, how long are you going to continue to, like, roll out something that just isn't working? Missinelli's show, I think, had its best ratings book of, I don't know, his, like, return to the radio. Is he going to go back to afternoons? Is that going to change anything for that station? I would say no. Maybe he takes a little bit away from WIP is such a runaway train at this point that, like, I don't even know if there is, like, is there a magic signing they could make that would get people to tune in? I did see that Josh Innes was, I think being facetious about applying for the on-air host job, but like Josh Innes going to 97.5, while it'd be funny, and if you were around for the Innes and Bruno days, would be a lot of fun, right? It could be chaotic, and Josh Innes like lobbing grenades at WIP from a distance could be interesting. Like, that's not going to happen. At least I would imagine it's not going to happen. That might be their best chance of, like, really shaking things up, but, like, that ain't happening. Could the Fanatic decide to go sign Howard Eskin? Would Howard Eskin go work for the other sports station? Where, like, and by the way, okay, so let's like play out a certainly will not happen hypothetical. If Mike Missinelli and Howard Eskin were somehow able to coexist and they did a show in the afternoons, would you listen to it? I would if for no other reason. Well, I wouldn't listen to it. I'd watch it or I'd have it on a second screen. If for no other reason than who throws the headphones at the other one first? My money's on Missinelli, but I'm not entirely sure. So that won't happen. I don't know what that station can do. I don't think there's anybody who can fix it. I will tell you that of all the people who are on during the day, Salchunas is the one who, like, they should probably figure out a way to build the show around. He's good. He's young-ish. Other than that, like, you could pretty much nuke the whole thing and try to start over. I've said a million times, their best path forward would be talk to some people that are content creators or a podcast host or whatever to take over some spots on the weekend, try to get an idea of engagement on who's actually calling into the show and engaging on short-form content. Like, there's a whole strategy 97.5 could go with that they're not. And the crazy thing for them, and this also was one of those unprompted, unexplained or unplanned conversations, but like 97.5 was the first one to go to FM, then they lost that ground. They were the first one to go to streaming, and then they lost that ground. They were the first one to have TV cameras, from what I could tell, right? Because they had the TV production with NBC Sports Philly. And now, when on my feed, I get a ton of WIP short-form content, and they're doing all of that well. And so that was another advantage, like where you were first to the market, and you don't have that. And even the idea of like having podcast people do the weekends, like WIP is already kind of doing that anyway, because they have their own in-house shows. So I really don't know what the Fanatic can do. But they don't just like have a very easy path forward to trying to make the station more listenable. I don't know. It's a really, really strange thing. So, Ford says, I like the D. Lynam and Cooney show on Saturdays. It's good basic sports talk, no shtick. Well, there you go. Then there's the show. I've talked to Cooney about his show. Kevin, not Bob. To Kevin Cooney. Nice guy. D. Lynam, I've heard, is a nice person. I don't think I've ever talked to her before, but that would be good. If that's a show that's doing well, that people enjoy, screw it. Put them on in middays at some point. Let them do filling in for the morning show from time to time. I guess if you're the Fanatic, you try to get Missinelli to do the afternoons again. Does he want to? I have no idea. So, anyway. Kenny Jones says, Fanatic had their shot at getting Bruno and Mays in the morning. It was their only chance, and they blew it. Those guys would have also had to want to work that, and I could tell you, right? So somebody that I happen to know is Jen from B101. She just retired, and I've talked to her a bunch of times about what it's like to do the morning shift. And John Marks was on this show before, and John Marks talked about how hard it is to do that morning shift. And, like, people don't like to hear that because it's like, oh, well, you just go talk into a microphone for a few hours in the morning. Who cares? It's like a 3 a.m. wake-up, depending on where you live. And then if you're trying to do the job the right way, you're going into the studio early for show prep and everything. It's a totally different way of living. So I can't really blame Bruno and Mays if they didn't want to do mornings. I can't blame them for that. Anyway, that's where I'm at. Let's see. Evan Atkins says John Kincaid is old man awful. I don't totally understand John Kincaid. I don't understand him on social. I don't understand him on his own show. I just don't get it. Derek Lentz says, stay away, Eskin to Howard. Says, please just go away. Reed DeFord says, Miss and Eskin would fist fight. That could be good radio, or at least good YouTube numbers, right? Streaming, so you have that. All right, so there you go. That's just a little bit on the radio stuff. Now, I want to go to what the whole point of the show was. The whole point of the show today was to have a conversation about the Flyers coaching carousel. Now, I did mention the fact in the thumbnail and even in the episode description that the Flyers had they had 3 guys make Team Canada, which is lovely, and we could celebrate, I guess, if you're into that kind of thing. I really don't care. But both of the Travises, do we call them Travi? Are they Travi? Do we go a little Latin? Travi. But the Flyers announced yesterday. We'll throw the graphic up here on the screen. We're not going to throw up on the screen. We're going to throw the graphic up on the screen. But the Flyers put this out there, that they're going to be joining Team Canada. So this will be the second competition in a row that Konecny and Sanheim have now represented their home nation. But joining them now is also Tyson Foerster, which is an interesting addition to the team. These 3 are going to represent Team Canada at the IIHF World Championship. So good for them. The hope obviously has to be that these guys are going to be able to find some time to rest. I mean, they've had some time since the season ended. there were people that were concerned about whether or not Konecny was trying to play through an injury late in the season. And if that's the case, we can go back to like a year ago when Joel Embiid was flirting with the idea of going to the Olympics. And those of us who had brains knew that that was probably a really bad idea because he was unable to stay healthy and he had a really awful ending to the playoffs where he was very clearly hurt. In the case of Konecny, he's a totally different human being, totally different injury history. I wouldn't really worry about him further injuring himself. Hopefully, it was just more of a fatigue down the stretch. He did set a career high for points, so good on him. So you have Konecny, Sanheim, and now Foerster. And if you're a Flyers fan, it might be weird to see that Tyson Foerster got added to this team, but you look at how he finished the season, and I think the thing that's more important is you have a young guy who's made enough of an impact and has caught the eye of enough people within the Hockey Canada organization that they go, hey, you know what? He's worth having come in and be with the team. And even if he doesn't play a ton, him being around that collective of the best players or the best available players for that nation for this competition is a good thing. It's a net positive. So whether or not Tyson Foerster would have made the Canadian national team for any competition, every competition, that doesn't really matter. The fact is he's turned enough heads that he's warranted getting a look, and I think overall it is a net positive that he's going to be with that team. Now, while that was part of the episode description and it's part of the thumbnail, again, that is not the main reason. That's not the main reason. I will say really quickly over here, Derek Glenn says TK playing for Canada is a bad idea. Worry about him fatiguing again and being fatigued for the Flyers. It's a fair concern, I guess, to have, but I'm honestly not too sure. Evan Atkins says, Snow the goalie hinted TK was hurt and injured as an excuse why he sucked. If he was hurt and injured, should he not be playing? I don't think he sucked. I think his inability to score was legitimately concerning. The inability to find the back of the net was really concerning to me. And I was told by a lot of people, well, you might be a goal scorer, but you had a lot of assists. And it's like, all right, that's fine. But I would like to see the guy score more goals because that's kind of part of his role and part of the point. I would not say that it's a mistake for him to play, but if he does have an injury, if he has multiple lingering injury issues, that needs to be prioritized. Mike over on X says, it's kind of neat Tyson made the squad. I agree. I see no downside to Foerster being on there. I think that maybe is the thing that you should look the most forward to if you're a Flyers fan, is that there are going to be a few of these younger guys that might actually get a look, depending on the competition, to play with their national teams. And if you're looking at what helps take a team to that next level, getting that kind of exposure, seeing how a national team camp is run, building relationships with some other players from around the league in those international camps is a good thing. And as this team eventually looks to try to make a splash in free agency, I'm not saying that Tyson Foerster and Travis Konecny and Travis Sanheim are going to be able to convince somebody just by being together in camp to consider the Flyers when they might not have previously, but there's no downside to it. The human element and the ability to kind of bond and to get along with one another and to evaluate chemistry, like all that, it is important. So there's that. Okay, what did I want to get to, though? The main point of today's show is an update on what I'm calling the coaching carousel, because Tampa Bay got knocked out of the playoffs early. Florida did what Florida does. And I think a lot of people expected Florida to, in fairness, to win that series. But there were certainly some that thought, all right, Tampa's been knocked out in the first round, a couple of years. They're a good team. They have very good players. Could Tampa Bay push this to a Game 7? Could Tampa Bay make it to the second round? And when they didn't, the question then became, all right, is Jon Cooper's message starting to fall on deaf ears? And if that's the case, if Jon Cooper's message is falling on deaf ears, and if Jon Cooper and the Lightning decide that the most advantageous thing for them together is for them to part ways mutually, maybe the Flyers would come a knocking. And so there were a lot of people that got really excited for a very brief time. And I say it's brief because we're going to pull up what actually happened. But for a very brief moment of time, people started saying, all right, well, what if? Is it possible that the Flyers could go after Jon Cooper if he hits the market. And there are very attractive openings right now. The Rangers are an attractive opening, or they were. We'll get to that in a little bit. The Penguins, if you really want to go coach, the end of Crosby and Malkin could be attractive. I got some heat from the last episode in saying that I don't love Anaheim's situation. I got hit in the comments after the fact with, well, here are like 5 players who are better than anyone the Flyers have or anyone not named Mishkov. I just don't think that the Anaheim situation is a great one. I don't think it's a great franchise. I don't think it's a sensational situation to walk into. And I think that Anaheim has also set a really weird precedent in firing their coach. He improved the squad by double-digit points. So firing him, to me, is like indicative of like, is there an ownership clash? Was there a clash with the front office? Makes me kind of wonder if that's a position that you really want to walk into. So I'd say like Rangers are probably number 1. Pittsburgh's maybe up there. The Bruins could probably turn things around pretty quickly. The Flyers' job has to be somewhere high up on that list. If you really like the idea of coaching Connor Bedard and you're willing to probably do another rebuilding year, which I assume is what Chicago's going to do, then the Blackhawks are probably a good option. Do you like the idea of taking over a Kraken team that could very well make it back to the playoffs next year, kind of improve a couple of things, a few tweaks, and you're a playoff team? Maybe. But this Flyers job to me is actually interesting, and it's not like a weird homerism to sit back and say, I think that the Flyers job is actually attractive. But you have a bunch of money that's going to come off the books after the 25-26 season. You have a GM and a president of hockey ops that are going to be given some more rope. They're going to be given the ability to go into this offseason to make trades if they want, to use as many of the 3 first-round picks and 4 second-round picks as they want. They're going to have the ability to go out and maybe offer sheet a player or 2. And then next year, they're very clearly circling that free agent class. I think it's an attractive place to go. And more than anything, because I'm very much on the train that they're going to make enough tweaks to make the playoffs next year, there's nothing quite like being the guy who takes what is viewed as one of the worst teams on the ice, one of the worst teams results-wise, and then flips them from being number 4 in the draft lottery to being a playoff team next year. And as an ego kind of person, as a head coach kind of has to be, you have to love the idea of potentially taking a team from 4th worst up to whatever a playoff team looks like to you. So it's an interesting job. Now, I mentioned Cooper is out. Cooper was gone. And a big part of that, and we can go here. Let's go over to the report from Elliot Friedman, who confirmed Tampa Bay's GM came out, said Jon Cooper's going to be our coach again next year. And then they were talking about all the injuries, and this was put out by Benjamin Pierce, saying that the Lightning had a lot of injuries against Florida. Compartment syndrome, required a house call at 2 a.m., went to ER for surgery. You have an MCL sprain, an AC joint separation. Yanni Gourde had a broken finger. Hagel's concussion. Hedman broken foot. Kucherov left hand injury. Nick Paul left wrist tear. I mean, yeah, they were a beat-up team. But the big news is that Jon Cooper is not being let go and that Tampa's not going to try to scapegoat him. Now, they do have a potentially concerning thing, and that's Isaac Howard. Now, if you recall, if you were watching the Press Row Show this season, in one of the final games of the year, we did talk about the fact that it's unlikely that Isaac Howard is going to sign with Tampa Bay, and that he went out publicly and said it was not because he was trying to force his way to the NHL early. But I do want to go out to what Tampa's GM had to say about it, because the second that a Hobey Baker winner potentially becomes available, and he presumably will be available via trade, even at the draft, or Tampa's just going to put him on ice for a year. I think that if you're Tampa and you don't think that he's going to sign with you, you trade him for whatever you can get. We're going to go out to Tampa's GM here really quickly as he talks about Isaac Howard and whether or not he's going to sign with the Lightning. Hint, they do not believe he will. Let's go out to the GM now, and we'll take a listen to his thoughts on Isaac Howard.
A lot of people still interested where you stand with Isaac Howard. And, I would say, hey, I really like Isaac. He's a likable player and a likable young man, and I've enjoyed all my interactions with him, including throughout the process of this off season. He had an unreal season. He won a Hobie Baker, well deserved. He's going for the World Championships now for Team USA. I'll be interested in seeing him play there. The reality is we haven't been able to come to an agreement that is mutually acceptable. If that doesn't change, he will become a free agent on August 15th of 2026. And if that were the case, we're going to receive a compensatory second round pick in the 2027 draft. When I chatted with Isaac,
Let's start there really quick, because the compensation is worth discussing. It's not like he's gone for nothing. But if you're Tampa, do you want to have an asset that isn't going to re-sign, and do you want to have to wait 2 drafts to get that pick? If you're Danny Briere and you have 4 second-round picks available this year, does offering a second-round pick to Tampa Bay for this year, does that get the wheels turning? Now, in fairness, Tampa doesn't need to take a second-round pick, and there are some people within the league who think that Isaac Howard could be worth significantly more than a second-round pick. It varies. There are some people who believe that he has second-line potential. There are some who think that he's going to be like a middle sixer. Either way, is that worth more than a second-round pick? I always look at second-round picks as being a crapshoot, right? Hell, late first-round picks can be a crapshoot as well. If you have a quantifiable asset, right, you know exactly what he has been in college. You know how he was being regarded leading up to his draft year. You know that Tampa really does like him, and they're speaking very highly of him publicly. This is where having all that draft capital can help. This is where having all that draft capital allows you to maybe take a swing for a guy that could ultimately help your team. Again, how much he'll help them, that remains to be seen. But to me, it's like pretty much a guarantee. This guy's going to be an NHL player. He probably could be an NHL player for the 25-26 season. And if there is a trade to make with Tampa and give them what's essentially the draft compensation they're going to get in 2 years, but give it to them now, well, you certainly have to consider it.
He was really candid, and I appreciated his honesty, and I thanked him for his honesty. He values the opportunity to choose the club that he believes is the best fit for him. And I won't speak for him, but he values that. And right now, I would say it's unlikely that we will sign him.
There it is.
The scenarios are either he gets traded prior to August 15th of 26, or he goes to free agency on August 15th of 26. Those are the 2 likely scenarios.
Was that a little?
So they go on here to do the whole thing about whether or not it was a surprise. That's not what matters. You have a GM who's not giving you talking points, and I saw this over here from Evan. Refreshing to hear a well-spoken GM not give PR talking points. This is clearly a situation that isn't a good look for an organization just in general, to have a player, we've lost the camera. Sir, we've lost. Oh, we're back. Okay. It's not a great situation to find yourself in when you lose a player who was highly regarded. He's not as highly regarded as like a Cutter Gauthier was, so this isn't that kind of an impact player. But to have the GM essentially come out and say, like, yeah, we expect that we're going to have to trade him, probably, or we're going to have to get that draft compensation next fall of 26, there is something refreshing about that. And that's why I think, like, if nothing else, he probably just started a feeding frenzy. Now, again, it varies depending on, like, what a team thinks Isaac Howard's upside really is, and he plays the wing, and so you go, all right, if you're the Flyers, and you're feeling pretty good about, like, the third line that performed really well down the stretch, if he ends up just being, at best, a third line forward, do you trade a second-round pick for that? Maybe. If you think he has a much higher upside than that, then maybe it's a second and a conditional pick. Is there a player within your organization that you're not exactly sold on that could make sense in a swap? Like, I don't know, but I do think that he's at least worth taking a flyer on. No pun intended. Maybe slightly intended. Actually, I kind of enjoy the pun now. But that's something that I'd be interested in. Now, you might not get Jon Cooper, who's staying in Tampa, but you could end up having some conversations with Tampa, picking up a player. So, all right, Isaac Howard maybe in play. We'll get back to that if we hear the Flyers connected to him, although I do expect that they're going to do at least their due diligence in checking in. So we had Jon Cooper came off the board. That was kind of to be expected. Another guy that we expected to hear from sooner than later was Mike Sullivan. Now, for those of you who remember, I fucking hated the idea of Mike Sullivan being the head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers. I hated that idea with virtually every fiber of my being. And I kept coming back to the fact that, like, if you remember towards the end of Torts' tenure, there was this thought that, like, maybe Torts would move aside so his buddy Mike Sullivan would get to take the job. Then there was a very brief time yesterday when it was thrown out there that Sullivan was going to go to the Rangers and that Torts might be an assistant coach or that Torts might go to the front office. That has since been snuffed out, so it seems like Torts might not be going back to the Rangers in any way after all. But Mike Sullivan is officially off the board. And I said earlier, of all the teams and all the openings and all the availabilities, the number one job in the NHL, vacancy-wise, was the Rangers' job. They are the team that are the most ready to win a Stanley Cup or to go on a deep Stanley Cup run. They are plug and play ready to go. Now, were the Rangers a mess this year? Were there culture issues? Was Lavi scapegoated? Probably yes to all of those. But that is a team that has a ton of talent. Now, they do have a very weird situation with Artemi Panarin and the accusations that were made. And I don't know how that'll shake out. Don't know if the league is going to do an investigation into it or if they've already done one. But that's like maybe it's not a great thing. And they have guys that are up and down like Zibanejad. But you have Shesterkin in goal. And so just off the start, like, you've got a really good netminder, which means you have a very good chance of advancing pretty far in the playoffs if you can get there. Sullivan is a good coach. I don't know if Sullivan is a generational coach. I will once again reiterate what I said on Wednesday's show. Winning a Stanley Cup is hard. Winning back-to-back Stanley Cups is even harder. Doing that with prime Sidney Crosby and prime Evgeny Malkin makes things a little bit easier. And they haven't exactly done a ton in Pittsburgh the last few years, and I get it. Those two have gotten older, although Crosby's production has remained very high. Hextall's hiring out in Pittsburgh almost looked like an inside job from the Flyers. I get it. They haven't done a great job of retooling that roster and trying to give Crosby and Malkin and Letang like a nice kind of ride off into the sunset. But I haven't gotten a lot out of Sullivan these last few years. From a distance, it's made me say, oh, you know what? This guy is an elite coach who anything would be stupid not to interview. Well, you combine that with the fact that Tortorella was fired and they're good friends. And to me, it seemed very unlikely Sullivan was going to be the guy. So now he's going to be in the Metropolitan Division leading the Rangers. So if you were like me and you're like, I don't want Sullivan to be the coach of the team, guess what? Good news, he's off the board. Okay, so no Mike Sullivan, no Jon Cooper. Well, then you keep coming back to the guy that is the most tied to the Flyers, and that's Rick Tocchet. But he's not the only name. But we'll go to Tocchet for a second because Elliot Friedman put out on 32 Thoughts, which I did not listen. I don't listen to 32 Thoughts. Can I tell you, I don't like that show at all. I find it so unbelievably boring. Can I just... No, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. Russ, be a good guy. Be a good person. Be a good person. Don't say mean things. Don't say bad things about people that have a nice big platform. Don't say things about them. You shouldn't do that. You should be nice. It's a fabulous Friday. We're going to be nice. We're not going to say things that are clippable, that video guy Amadeo is going to do, and then I'm going to have to do damage control, and then I'm going to have to talk to people who are going to be upset that I can't give less of a shit about a lot of the national hockey shows. I love a lot of national shows in other sports, and I don't miss an episode. There are a bunch of podcasts to talk about the NBA that I am happily subscribed to, right? And I enjoy a lot of shows and content around the NBA. Hockey has such a void. And 32 Thoughts, this iteration of it where Merrick is on a different show, where he's got his own thing, and Friedman's still on 32 Thoughts, it does not do it for me at all. Merrick's show I've tried to listen to. That's not a must listen either. Now, who the hell am I? I'm just a guy who hosts this show and hosts Snow the Goalie, the Only Flyers podcast. But there's little to no entertainment value. So I don't listen to it. But the positive is that 32 Thoughts gets aggregated a lot. And so it was put out there that Friedman said that Rick Tocchet is the number one guy on the Flyers head coaching list, but that there's a growing belief that Tocchet's going to go back to TV next year. Now, I am going to continue to put this out there, okay? I'm just going to continue to float this idea out there, okay? My big question around the Flyers head coaching search is, are Danny Briere and Keith Jones going to be 100% in lockstep, right? You cannot afford for there to be discord between those two. They seem very aligned. They seem like their vision for the team is aligned. They seem like they together believed they were doing one thing. At some point, Torts no longer believed that, or something went awry with Torts, and those two said, all right, well, you're going to fuck off. And so Torts is gone. The reason that Tocchet has been brought up so many times is because he and Jonesy are close. If Danny Briere has somebody on his list, right, and he's the GM, but Jonesy is the president of hockey ops, are you going to end up in a situation where like Dan Hilferty or somebody else has to be the tie-breaking vote? Does Jonesy, as the president of hockey ops, get to make the hire over Danny Briere? Like, I would hope not. And I would certainly hope that, like, when all's said and done, these guys are going to be 100% aligned on it. But is it possible that the Flyers interview Rick Tocchet? They interview Pat Ferschweiler, which has actually been reported has already happened. It's also been put out there that Jay McKee, who was a former teammate of Danny Briere with the Sabres and has been a coach in the OHL with the Brantford Bulldogs, he might be in play. Is there a possibility that these guys can go through the interview process and maybe push comes to shove, one of them gets to kind of throw a little bit more weight out there and they make a hire? I don't know. I certainly hope that these two, at the very least, are the most aligned on it. They have to be. This offseason is so big for this team, and it's not like it's a single offseason, right? It's not like the decisions made in this one offseason for the Flyers are only limited to the upcoming season. The decisions they make now, whether to offer sheet a player, whether or not to trade draft compensation to go after a guy like Isaac Howard, whether or not they decide to use as many of those 3 first-round picks and 4 second-round picks on actual draft picks, those are going to be decisions that are going to have reverberations that will be felt for a decade. Not a year, not 2 years, not 3 years. This offseason is massive to this Flyers team. Their ability or lack thereof to move some money off the books between now and the start of next season, or between now and the start of the 26-27 season, is huge. It could fundamentally alter how quickly this team turns things around and how quickly this team gets to a place that they really haven't been for decades, which is a year in and year out Stanley Cup contending team. It is huge. They have to get it right. They need to get the head coach selection right. There's not a path here where you can throw out beaucoup bucks to a potential coach, have it go sideways in a year or two, and then you're back at it again in the 27-28 season. That doesn't work. That won't fly. They have to get it right. So as things are currently kind of set up, Sullivan's out, Cooper is out. Ferschweiler has reportedly been interviewed, the Western Michigan coach who, you may have noticed, won a national championship. So Ferschweiler has been interviewed reportedly. Tocchet, still very much on the radar. And then you have this other name that recently came out, Jay McKee. I wouldn't think that Jay McKee is going to get the coaching job. Maybe he gets a look as an assistant coach. I don't know. Brad Shaw's name will remain out there until a decision is made. Also keep in mind, the Flyers got rid of a bunch of assistant coaches, except for Dillabaugh, the goalie coach, and Brad Shaw, who was the associate coach last year. Could we see a scenario where Brad Shaw is the associate coach under Rick Tocchet? Maybe. I still think that the best path the Flyers have right now, right, the best path, is Ferschweiler coming in and being the head coach, with Brad Shaw as this very experienced NHL associate coach. I like that 1-2 combo. I would rather see them have Brad Shaw take the job for a year or two on a short-term deal, a prove-it deal, than have Rick Tocchet. But Tocchet might end up being the guy. Ferschweiler, to me, is really interesting. He's had the success at the collegiate level. He's previously had some experience in the NHL. And if you have a guy like Shaw that can be a steady hand, that's done really good work with the blue line, that has been lauded by players as being somebody who communicates really, really well, that to me is the perfect combo. Go bring in this new blood in Ferschweiler. Keep Brad Shaw on the staff. Fill it out from there. No matter what happens, barring cataclysmic injuries, this team will make the playoffs next year. And these guys are going to look great for it. The idea that Tocchet, though, could go back to TV, given some of the other openings, is surprising to me. Like, I would have thought Tocchet would definitely be interested in a Pittsburgh job, this job, maybe the Seattle job. How are you not, or how could you not be interested in a Bruins job? These are like some actual good openings. Chicago went, Anaheim, Again, varying degrees of good young players. I don't know what job, if you really do want to be a head coach, and he's 61, Tocchet. If you don't want to be a coach this upcoming season, you want to go to TV, what job are you hoping is going to open up in a year? Like, that's the question that I would have. If you really do want to be a head coach in this league, what job do you want to see come open next year that isn't currently available? I don't know. Somebody have to let me know. Like, is the hope here that like a Colorado is going to have like a stinky end of the playoffs and is going to have a really bad start to next season, and that's the job you can walk into? Like, I don't know what you'd be looking for. I don't know what job you could potentially have your eyes on that isn't available right now. Now I'm going to go over to the comments here really quick. There's a lot of comments over here. Woo. All right, I see all kinds of stuff about Howard. People saying, like, Flyers Purgatory saying it'd be a great get. Zacho says getting Howard in our system would be amazing. I'd be interested. Zacho thinks that draft picks for a tangible asset who's ready to turn pro. As long as it's not an overpay, I'm down. That's all good. Okay. Now, Ryan Reese says no Sullivan, no Tocchet. Tocchet could happen. Sullivan certainly out. Brian Knowlton finally clarified what my wish was, not to get Sullivan. Okay, good. Yes, fantastic Friday. My wish came true. Let's see. Evan Adkins says Tocchet is perfect for TV. Flyers Purgatory had a thing here about I don't know what this is in reference to. I'll come back to that if I can figure it out. Reed DeFort says Ferschweiler feels like a Hackstall retread. I disagree, especially given the national championship he just led his team to. I disagree with that. Flyers Purgatory says Hackstall did nothing in college besides Coach Hextall's kid. A little different situation. I think the Ferschweiler is a really good coach, and I take winning even at the collegiate level to mean something. Video guy Amadeus says the same thing. Ferschweiler has actually won something in college, unlike Hack. I mean, Hackstall did lead a team that was a year in and year out contender, but wasn't a winner. Or didn't ultimately win it all. Let's see. Nick Johnson says, at least this hiring won't be decided by a law firm this time. That's pretty cool to be like the other teams. Gooey H says the Kings job would be nice. Coach blew it this year. Yeah. The Kings should have eliminated the Oilers. They did the old, do you remember the old John Stevens thing? Like John Stevens, when he was coach, the Flyers would take, or his team would take a lead, and then they'd get ultra conservative, and then they'd end up conceding the tying goal, and they'd ultimately lose. That's kind of what it felt like this series was with the Kings and the Oilers. It was like they'd get a lead, they'd sit back, they'd allow Connor McDavid, of all people, to have free reign to enter the zone however he'd like, and then that was it. And they screwed themselves. The Kings really should have won their series, which would have helped the Flyers' Oilers pick, the pick they own from the Oilers. So, not great. Let's see. Ryan Reese says, pray Dallas wins so the Colorado pick is in the early 20s. Yeah, let me see if I can pull up the bracket right now of where the current series stand. Here, we'll go over here real quick. For those who haven't been keeping up with the Stanley Cup playoffs as much as they probably should have been, and in fairness, the playoffs have been very good. Very, very good. All right, Let's go over here real quick. All right, so you've got let's get rid of that. The series that we care about. I would expect Vegas is going to beat Edmonton in the second round. So it shouldn't be the lowest of low first-round picks with the Oilers, but this is where it really matters. Game 7 coming up. If Dallas wins, that Colorado pick becomes all the more valuable to your team, your town, your Philadelphia Flyers. So we are going to have to collectively, for better or worse, root against the Colorado Avalanche and sadly have to root for a Dallas team. Now, in fairness, if Dallas wins, and let's say Dallas goes on a run, let's say Dallas makes it to the Stanley Cup final, maybe even wins, Mikko Rantanen hoists Lord Stanley's Cup, and Carolina over here flame out against the Capitals, or maybe they flame out against the Maple Leafs or the Panthers, and Rantanen ends up winning the Cup. Maybe Rod Brind'Amour gets a little bit more vocal. Maybe Brindy hits the open market as a head coaching candidate. It's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. That one's certainly not going to happen. So. Yeah, we're all going to root for Dallas. That is what you have to do if you're a Flyers fan. I'm sorry. We hate rooting for Dallas, but we kind of have to. You want to get the pick. The pick has to be a better pick. All right, let's see. We got Mr. Twitster says, LA choked big time. AJ, resident Rangers fan. I'm going to see AJ tonight. I'm going to have to ask AJ what he thinks about the Mike Sullivan hiring and also the fact that Torts was not brought back to his organization. Let's see. Flyers Purgatory with a thought on Tocchet. Says dump and chase guy, 45% controlled entries, 41% this year. Had people calling Keller a bust. And Pettersson has a 100-point season, was told he needs to change his whole game. There's also a rumor out there that Tocchet didn't like the Pettersson extension, which, given the fact that he's had a 100-point season, I mean, I get that there are some people that think Pettersson's a problem in Vancouver. I don't happen to be one of them. But he's also their best player by a significant margin. So if your coach didn't like that decision to keep him long-term at a high AAV, that's probably another reason that you part ways there. But they wanted to bring him back, so it's interesting. T from the TO3 says, Russ, I've been rooting for the Stars since the Flyers have kicked the shit out of my life. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Trevor. I am sorry. Allison says, no problem rooting against the Avs. I'm all for it. Amadeo says, we love Dallas. Don't we, folks? We love Dallas. We love the Stars. We love big, beautiful Stars, don't we, folks? We love Mikko Rantanen. We love Mikko. We don't love Nico if you're in Dallas. Nico Harrison, the idiot GM for the Mavs who traded away Luka Doncic. Traded him away for a bag of balls. One that had a big unibrow. Anthony Davis always hurt. Big Anthony Davis always hurt. By the way, Ford is usually the one who wants the thoughts on the NBA playoffs. I'll just point out really quickly, LeBron James did not want anything to do with the end of that series. LeBron James wanted nothing to do with remaining in the playoffs. It's as if he knew that not having a center, which we all kind of knew if you watch basketball, the lack of a center was going to be a legitimate issue for the Lakers. As soon as they rescinded the deal for Davis from Charlotte, it was I think anybody could see the writing on the wall that LeBron was going to have a little meltdown. And part of the reason that Anthony Davis got traded from the Lakers in the first place is that he said he wanted to play the four. This has always been an Anthony Davis thing. He wants to play the four. He doesn't want to play center. And then he got traded. LeBron wanted nothing to do. Nothing to do with Anthony Edwards. Wanted nothing to do with confrontation in the Timberwolves series. He looked as checked out as I think I've ever seen him look. And I am thrilled because I like the Timberwolves and I really like Anthony Edwards. And I love the fact that Anthony Edwards took the victory lap around the Lakers arena after eliminating them. I thought that was hilarious. I love that. That is a level of petty that I could only aspire to be. And I loved every second of it. That's my thought on the playoffs and the NBA on Friday. I had some thoughts on the playoffs on Wednesday. Let me just take a gander here really quick at where because I think we only have 2 Western Conference series left, if I remember correctly. Clippers 1, James Harden, baby. So you've got a game 6 on Friday night between the Rockets and Warriors. If Houston wins that game, that'll be a game 7 on Sunday night. And the Clippers and Nuggets play on Saturday night in Denver. I'm going to cheer for the Clippers because I just love the chaos of what happens here in Philadelphia if we have to watch James Harden and Ben Simmons advance to the second round of the playoffs after Daryl Morey got rid of both of them. I love the chaos. I also don't want to see Jokic win. So make of that what you will. But we do get Knicks Celtics in a battle of teams that we don't like. We get Pacers, Cavs, and what will probably not be as competitive of a series as some people think they will. We'll see. I'll have some thoughts on the NBA playoffs as we go forward, but just not a ton today. Okay. Okay. I think that's it. I think it's probably time to go. Ogie says, how about Quinn Hughes as Vancouver's best player? All right. Yeah. I forgot about Quinn Hughes. Though in fairness, Vancouver's GM not that long ago kind of forgot about Quinn Hughes and said that, whether or not he wants to stay in Vancouver is kind of his call. And, there's the whole idea that, well, maybe we could bring the Hughes brothers to play with Quinn here. It's not happening. It's not happening at all. Quinn Hughes will not be a Canuck for much longer, one would imagine. So anyway, that's where we're at for Friday. Flyers coaching carousel. 3 players make Hockey Canada. 97.5 The Fanatic is on fire. And Bryce Harper doesn't look like he cares about baseball right now. I think that's it. I think it's good for a Friday. I feel pretty good. Last second here. We have somebody over on X, Mize370 says, please tell me Tocchet is a no. He's very much in play. But you know what, guys? You can mark me down. Team Shaw, Team Ferschweiler. Ideally having both of them. I'll plant my flag in the Ferschweiler with Shaw's associate coach camp. Okay? That's what we're going to do. I think it's where I'm at. I want to thank everybody for hanging in here today with the 7.5-minute tech difficulty at the top of the show. That was probably my least favorite thing that's happened on this show through 95 episodes. So I've been 95 episodes of this show, but there's not 95 subscribers needed. We are so close on the run to 1,000 subscribers on the Russ Joy Show YouTube channel. We are now down to 21 is all we need to get to 1,000. So if you haven't done so already, and you've been joining me for these episodes, or you listen in the podcast feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts, please, for God's sake, and if you don't believe in God for the sake of a tree, subscribe to the channel. I just want to get to 1,000. It'd feel really cool to get to 1,000. It's not that my almost 10-year-old and 8-year-old mock me for not having 1,000 subscribers, while a lot of their favorite YouTube channels have millions, but you could certainly help a guy out. So close. So close. Listen, viewer of the show. Your parents have a Gmail account, right? Maybe Gertrude and Hank subscribe to the Russ Joy Show on YouTube. That could be 2 more. Gets us even closer. Go from 21. Can we get to 1,000? All right, this is actually a little bit pathetic begging for subscribers, but in fairness, what did you expect? It's a funky Friday. Zacho says, in all caps, we love to hit like and subscribe to the best show ever. Oh, it's not the best show ever. Do they still call the afternoon show that now? Is it the best show ever? I don't know. We'll find out. That's all. I am heading out, everybody. Have a fantastic Friday. Enjoy your weekend, and thanks again. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. You can let me know in the regular comments after the video is done what you agreed with, what you disagreed with. I will be back on Monday here on the Russ Joy Show. But until then, I've been Russ Joy, but you knew that already because you're smart, and it's also the name of the show. Have a great weekend, everybody. I'll talk to you on Monday here on the Russ Joy Show. Bye for now.